Hello, I'm Aschwartz, and this is my interactive and graphic design presentation. The first project is from Digital Theory and Design. I believe it was a Mandela project where I had to have some sort of circular focus or pattern that repeated. So I was in the first page trying to brainstorm things to do, kind of wanted to have a figure as the focus, and I eventually decided on the bottom left character, the child holding the sand pail. And I went on to try to sketch out how the character was going to be posed, what they'd look like, and how surrounding mermaids and elements would look. I then worked on a wave pattern, which I eventually ditched, but originally I wanted to have different layers of the waves shown in the background, and I was trying to figure out how to make it fit together in an Illustrator design, which I hadn't done before. I did try out the wave design, but I decided it was too busy with all the other elements I had involved, so I ended up doing that kind of gradient look you see in the background. I also changed the mermaids in the character to have more of a realistic feel because I wasn't really vibing with the designs I'd done earlier. And to replace the wave design, I did these little fish characters. If I were to change anything, I would change the color scheme and the values of the fish specifically. I feel like they distract from the mermaids, they're a little too close to the skin tone, and I would like to put a little more brightness into the main character, maybe have that as the focus, so it kind of pops out of the page rather than having these mermaids taking the show. The next project is a explainer video partner project for intro to sequence, motion, and visual communication. This was a group project with Cassie Van Nest. For our explainer video, we decided to do a step-by-step on how to make a bouquet. I started sketching out some ideas for possible assets we could use, and maybe some of the main thumbnail sketches, one of them being trimming the leaves off of the flowers. And as seen in these sketches, that was the original design. Then we started sketching out the panels for the storyboard, starting on paper and then going into the digital format you see in the middle with the numbers 41, 42, and 43. The thing above that was actually the planning for the first designs, and the screenshot on the bottom right is actually some of our final designs for the final storyboard. As you can see, we switched from more of a hand-drawn look to something with photo-based assets. Because of the number of assets we were using, it made it easier for us to get everything in on time. I thought it'd be a bit much to show the whole video in this presentation, so I have left a link to it. In the summer of 2023, I interviewed with a nonprofit organization called We Can Serve PA as their art and design intern. I was assigned projects and given their official color palette as seen, and their logo assets to work with. I was allowed to make posts and other projects to get approved, so I had some level of control in this internship, which was pretty neat. One of my smaller projects were these vector PA native animals involving the We Can Serve PA logo. The idea behind this was they would be able to take the individual animals and use them on whatever content they needed. The We Can Serve PAB being used for B-Day. I also had some typography and formatting based projects. The first one you see is the sponsor PDF for funding. I designed a whole PDF that had all the information for our sponsors. On the right, you can see an example of one of my social media posts for a Growing Green Coalition campaign. It was a 6-week campaign, and I made evergreen content for those 6 weeks that they can republish. This is actually the start of a bigger project that started and ended in the internship over, I believe, a 3-month period. They told me to make a poster that they can put all of the members on. So I decided to make different designs with a white background so they would be able to put on different logos as the members change. And we eventually developed it into the final design. The final design, the middle, It had PA woodpeckers, and it had all the different logos on a white birch tree, a white PA birch tree. That way they can, again, move and remove and add new logos as they go. They ended up liking the design enough to have me design a longer version to put on an 8-foot banner for their conference. The full picture being seen on the right, and on the left you can see the picture of the banner from the actual conference. Next we go on to the logo and branding project for visual communication design. These are sketches from different periods working towards the final logos for my project. I ended up choosing the bottle and pepper logo on the right in the on the very right in the middle. You can see this logo carried onto a digital format. I then realized that it was a bit stiff and the colors didn't really match the style, so I decided to go for more of a gradient thing, which then moved on to a glass with a pepper-shaped splash coming out of it that better represented the restaurant without being, too on the nose. We then moved on to letterheads for these specific logos. First sketched out the main designs for the letterheads, the business card, the envelope, and the letter itself, and then I started making reusable assets that I could use across the letterheads. And here's the final letterhead stationery set. It has the logo I had worked on before in a different color. It has some of the assets I'd worked on, and I made sure to keep it continuous throughout the different designs so that it would be unified all together. This project also involved a physical project design, so I went for a charcuterie or wine kind of thing. Originally, I wanted to go for a fancy hand-drawn label for a fancy wine bottle, but I didn't really think it fit the design, so I ended up moving more towards a vector illustration kind of thing that went along with the vector illustrations from before. And I took the roasted logo and I used it on each object with a different color to match the theme. I'm now moving on to the Typography 1 project that has creating a booklet for an active exhibit. I started with planning sketches focusing on the established banana on the other promotional items for this exhibit. For the most part, the design for the booklet didn't change too much from my sketches, but it did add some typography elements that I wasn't really aware of. When I originally did this, I had all the typography up towards the top of the page, but I was then told that I could just move it down a bit so it could have room to breathe. I also made sure to feature the front of the exhibit, well, not the exhibit, but the museum the exhibit was in, as the cover because they changed the outside of the museum to reflect the inside exhibit every single time they have a new exhibit. So I thought that was important to include. I included the exhibit and the poster as well that came with this project. I tried to keep them pretty similar so it would be obvious that they were of the same exhibit to keep consistent branding. I worked on a partner project in Intro to Web Experience and Interaction Design. The goal was to develop an app prototype. We decided on an app for writers to organize their ideas. Sketches for icons on the left and ideas for different modules as a response to previous design criticism as seen on the left of that page, which was really helpful because I didn't really like the original design too much. Our original color scheme was a monochrome purple, but it was dull, so I looked up some color palettes as seen above, and I started making an icon sheet with said color palette. I used the icon sheet multiple times throughout the module designs to keep things unified, and I used a book cover I had drawn previously for one of our examples. On the right, you can see our modules as a whole, and on the left, you can see final designs for some of our main pages. Now that I'm more comfortable with Figma, I feel like I can make a more polished experience, as ours felt kind of too linear, as you would get to one place and you had to click a bunch of buttons to get back. Thank you for watching and for all the cool projects so far.